Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Jeff Bird with Jeffrey Bird Coaching, and I am very pleased tonight to have my friend Ramona Watson with us. She is a clinical psychiatrist with the Army, and we got a great topic coming up for you tonight. I think one that everybody can relate to. So, Ramona, before we jump in, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Jeff. But before we get started, let me just say that's clinical psychologist.
Oh, sorry, I always
So
get those
not,
mixed up. Okay, well, thanks.
no
Thanks.
worries,
Thanks,
no
thanks for
worries.
thanks for writing that. So excellent. So Ramona and I met recently. We were on the panel for a health and awareness conference, which a friend of ours who is having some kidney disease, he is now he's pushing back on that by trying to promote health and awareness for people so they don't get the same thing. So we were on the
Mhm.
panel, and so we started talking, and we realized what each other did because I do a lot with brain health and psychiatry, and so we started talking,
Yeah.
and she wrote an article for Kingdom Life Today magazine that I write for, and we got that in the magazine, and I said, well, why don't we jump on here and do a Zoom call and talk about some of these things? And Ramona, that's how we got here. So thank you again for being here, and I'm looking forward to our discussion this evening.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. This is a good opportunity, and I'm always glad to talk about health promoting topics pretty much anytime, any place. So it's no problem at all. It's actually my pleasure.
Good. Well, thank you for that. And so what we've come to, I mean, just as we think about it, so what's going on with the health of so many people? And we know that so many people either they're one of two things, it seems to me. They're either not aware, like the health and awareness part, they're not aware of what to do to be healthy, what to eat, what to drink, how to exercise, all the socialization, the different things that go on in their mind and their body, and what to put in, or they are aware or have some awareness, but they're not compliant. They don't do it. So that
Mhm.
second thing is the thing that I really want to talk about. It's like, so why why do we have people that are aware of what to do, what's a healthy thing, what's a good decision, what's not just going to make them happy in the moment, but down the road, but
Mhm.
they don't do it. They don't take that seriously. So can you just we'll just riff on that for a little bit. Can you talk to me about what are some of the things that come to your mind that might hinder a person who knows to do right from doing right?
Absolutely. So I think that one of the main issues that we see around any type of lifestyle management or any type of change period is the fact that people really do have sort of an anxiety or a fear in relation to change.
Hmm.
And some of that just has to do with familiarity, I think, that people are used to doing things certain ways, and however they started doing that, if they find out that, well, that there are better ways to do it, or there are ways to improve what they're doing, there is an initial interest in that probably, but then the idea of what change is going to mean or how that's going to change things, and the fear of the unknown. I think a lot of the anxiety comes from not knowing what the other side looks like. If I do make a
Hmm.
change, on the one hand, yes, it will probably be better for me, health wise, or in some other way, it would probably be better for me. But what's going to be the cost of it? What's going to be the cost of me
Huh.
maintaining it? What's going to be the cost of me doing it? Can I maintain it? Um, how much is it going to take in terms of time, in terms of sometimes finances, or just there are so many variables that they can think about when it comes to change, that change itself can sometimes just be scary for people. That's one of the things that I think of. Another thing is wondering if they are going to have what it takes to maintain the change, to start something and then to be able to carry it through, or to do whatever the behavior is, long enough for them to be able to see the benefits of it.
So thank you for that. So as I'm listening to that, what's coming to my mind, so I'm feeling a lot of fear in what you're saying, and I think primarily fear of discomfort and possibly fear of failure. So
Yes.
we like I
Yes.
don't want to try and mess it up. Like you know, I had a lot of success physically with intermittent fasting, but when just say the word intermittent fasting, some people freak out. They're like, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't do all that fasting." And I'm like, "It's intermittent fasting. You're not fasting for 3 months at a time. It's a few hours
Mhm.
at a time."
Mhm.
But people
Yeah.
think they can't do it, and it's because they think they can't do it, they don't do it even if they would
And
benefit from it. So let's talk into those couple of things a little bit. Let's think into those. So the fear of discomfort. People think, okay, the change, like you said, the change that's going to be required to do the better, that's going to make me uncomfortable. I'm comfortable with this life I've got. This is what I've always done. I'm familiar with it. It's cozy. It's like a warm blanket, even though it's like really
Mhm.
hurting me, you know. And
Right.
so I'm afraid of that. So can you talk a little bit about for the people who are afraid of the discomfort part? I don't think it necessarily has to be uncomfortable. It's like we're not making ourselves miserable on purpose, and I think there are a number of ways that we can go about that. So do you have any thoughts or any tips or advice for people on that who are afraid of the potential discomfort of it?
Definitely. That's a very important point because a lot of times I think that people want to do better or they want to improve, but oftentimes when they think about it, they're thinking about all that is involved. But it is beneficial just to make small steps. So a lot of times, rather than thinking of the whole, like thinking of it's going to take 5 or 6 different things, it would be most beneficial for them to probably just focus on one thing
Yeah.
and let me start there. I'll start there. That's the easiest thing to start, or that's the thing that I can start without making too much of a change, but it's also a step towards progress. It's a step towards reaching that ultimate goal. And I think a lot of times people see the whole thing. They don't look in small chunks as being successful. And a good example of that is say like weight management. Someone is wanting to lose 20 pounds, where they're thinking about all the 20 pounds at one time. I want to lose 20 pounds. If they just concentrate on making a change, such as, let's just say, walking 20 minutes 3 times a week. So that's a small change in their schedule. 20 minutes 3 times a week, they're going to go walking. Right now, they're not walking at all. By doing that, by walking 20 minutes 3 times a week, maybe they can, at that pace, lose a pound a week. And given the fact that they're also maybe making a couple of diet changes. And just so whether they're actually losing all of that 20 pounds at once, that isn't going to matter as much. You can eventually, once you get used to that routine, you can eventually lose more, but you've got to start someplace, and starting someplace is progress.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, just listening to you say that, I mean, it just provides so much hope, and it reminds me of a couple of things. One, I'm sure you'll remember is Richard Simmons, the jazzercise, whatever he was doing, kind of instructor, weight loss instructor
Mhm.
back in the day. He was very famous for the one more. He was like, you can do one
Mhm.
more. You can lift your leg one more time. You can take one more step. It's just like one more, one more. He was always like a cheerleader for one more.
Yeah.
Do one more curl, do one more, whatever it was. Just do one more.
Mhm.
Don't do like 1,000 more. I saw a
Yeah.
meme on Facebook recently, and it said, "No, you can't lift 1,000 pounds, but you can lift 1 pound 1,000 times." And I thought
Exactly.
that is just brilliant. And then Something a little bit
Exactly.
unrelated, but it still applies, is Mother Teresa once said that if she ever stopped to look at all the need around her, it would overwhelm her to the point of paralysis and she would do nothing. So when we look at
Yeah.
all the giant big picture, I call it being avalanched. It's like I feel like I'm
Mhm.
avalanched with all of this stuff that's way too big for me. And I think there's no way that's going to work. So I don't even try. But if I break it
Right.
down into the small steps like you're talking about and go, I don't have to run a marathon, but maybe I can walk around the block. Let me start with
Exactly.
that. Let me start with something I can readily do without too much inconvenience, and then build up from there. I just think that's so much wisdom in that, and such a brilliant way to go. So thank you for bringing that to all of our
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah. And I think there is a similar quote, and it says something like, the journey of a lifetime begins with one step.
Yes,
And
heard that one.
so, that is really anything that you're talking about. It often anxiety comes out of feeling like you don't have control over something. And so if you look at the whole picture, if you look at the mountain, you feel like I don't have control over that, being able to conquer that. Yet any mountain climber has to take one step at a time. They don't they don't just jump to the top of the mountain. They have to literally take one step at a time to reach the top of the mountain. And so when we look at factors like that, we can help people to overcome fears because we say it doesn't matter where you are. You can start wherever you are, and wherever you are, celebrating the small successes is going to help you to eventually be able to celebrate bigger successes, and you can ultimately reach your goal.
Ramona, I love that. Yeah, it doesn't really matter if you got 2 pounds to lose or 200 pounds to lose. I mean, both of them start at the same place by not taking that extra bite, or just a little bit
Yes.
of reduction. And well, I mean, that's so brilliant. It doesn't matter how big how big the task is or the goal is. It's like just start with a small step in the right direction. And then
Yes.
I mean, I think that celebration too. I mean, you can celebrate. That's a small victory. You don't have to celebrate the conquering Everest. You can celebrate the one step like you're talking about.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. And so I've found too that one of the other things that often helps is having some type of accountability
Hmm.
to someone, or just a shared um, encouragement from someone. So, even if they're not on a weight loss journey or something, you can enlist the help of others to help you and to celebrate those small steps with you. So if they are willing to to go with you or to do things with you, oftentimes that helps because you feel like this is not something that I'm doing by myself, and so I'm not completely
Right.
dependent on my own motivation. Other people are kind of, in essence, a cheerleader for me, so that even on days when I'm feeling like, yeah, that's the last thing I want to do, they're cheering you on, and just saying, come on, let's just walk for 15 minutes. We can do that. We can do it together. And so that extra support that you would get, I think that is often helpful too, as well as what we've been talking about, looking at smaller successes and smaller steps is really enlisting the support of family or other people, who are rooting for you and who would celebrate the success with you, that you just enlist them to even have them, you can tell them what you're doing, or if you're not feeling like doing it, and they can come alongside sometimes and really help in that venture that you have.
Wow. So that's just so brilliant too. So I mean, no matter what the goal is, we can break it down into small steps and we can do it together. We're not alone and we don't have to do it all at once. I love that. And
Yeah.
so with those two things in mind, those are wonderful things. So let's go to that third thing, and it's like that you kind of mentioned earlier, and that's a fear of people don't start because they're afraid of failing. I think failure is a deep, deep-seated fear in all of us. We don't want to look bad, we don't want to feel bad, we don't. So it's easier sometimes not to try than to try and fail. So when somebody's up against
Yeah.
that, what advice would you have for them?
Right. So that is a big one of the big barriers is that sometimes people would rather not start than to start and fail. And I think that it is really important for people to recognize that every success may have failures associated with it. And not necessarily failures, but just trial and error.
Right.
Um, because in most cases, you do not find or eventually encounter success until you find out what doesn't work. You've had other things that didn't work, or you've had some partial success, and yet that wasn't the ultimate success that you would finally achieve. And over time you found what works best, and so eventually you get the well-oiled machine that everything is working the way that it needs to work for this to be successful. But that takes a while. It's never usually overnight. And so thinking about the fact that it's not a failure, it's a trial and error, and you can't ever go wrong with doing something that is healthy. If it's ultimately something that is healthy, then you can't it can't ever be something that would count against you, or would be something negative, because you're doing something good for yourself either way. So you can't say, oh, I feel bad now that I didn't lose 20 pounds, I just lost 6. What a failure.
Yeah.
Well, no, you know you're 6 pounds lighter than you were before.
Right.
So you have to call that a success. It's not as big of a success as you would like it to be, but it is a success, and it's something that has benefited you in other ways as well. Because a lot of times, if we are talking about weight, let's say even losing 6 pounds sometimes can make a change in your blood pressure or your heart rate,
Right.
and so you've done something good just by losing the 6 pounds. You have less weight to carry when you're trying to exercise or what have you. So all the way around, it isn't a failure because you have gotten something from it. And so that's one of the things that I have thought about, in that regard, about failure versus not being a failure. But also there's what we call perspective. So there is a something that a lot of people may not have heard of called locus of control.
Mhm.
And locus of control is basically a viewpoint or a way of looking at things where it is either identified as an external locus of control or an internal locus of control when it comes to your thinking. So an external locus of control means that other factors or other people, other situations determine my outcome
Right.
more so than I do.
Right.
And an internal locus of control means you control the outcomes, the the results, and everything else. So whether it's related to your health or something else, you control it, or you have the most control over it than other sources. And so if a person really does have uh, more of an internal locus of control, they're going to say or think that it's my job to make sure that I continue to work at something until it becomes a success. I'm not going to be denied the success, because I'm not going to allow other situations or trials and errors deter me when I know that if I continue to do this, I will eventually be successful because it's in my control. If I stop, then definitely I won't be successful because I'm then not putting forth the effort that it would take to be successful.
Wow, that's brilliant. And so what comes to mind, this I'm sure you've heard this story. It almost sounds like you were talking about it, but with the locus of control and the perceived failure, it reminds me of the story of Thomas Edison with the light bulbs. And just I mean,
Hmm.
we've got the lights on our computers, but I got a ring light in front of me. We got lights all over the place. Everything's run by electricity now, but and light bulbs. But Thomas Edison tried like 10,000 times to create a light bulb, and it didn't work. And I think there was one interviewer, a reporter that came to him and said, "Wow, you failed 10,000 times to create a light bulb." And he said, "No." He said, "I didn't fail. He said, I learned 10,000 ways that a light bulb doesn't work." Just like you were saying, it's like now I know what it doesn't work like. So now I'm that much closer to figuring out what it does work like. So, and
Right.
eventually he kept,
Exactly.
and then that locus of control, he didn't just take that his external locus of control from his circumstances and those failures around him and the naysayers. He said, "No, I'm going to get this." He took responsibility for it. He said, I'm going to keep learning until I figure this out," and he did. And now we have light. And so, both of
Yeah.
those things, he just kept persevering and going, "Okay, I'm not just, it might feel bad, but I'm not going to let that hold me down. I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm going to keep going even through those feelings until I
Hmm.
figure out the way it works." And now here we all are with light.
Exactly. Like he just felt like it's up to him to just continue to work on it until he was able to have the success, or until he felt satisfied that he had tried all options and kept refining until he got to the place where it was a success.
Right.
And that can be the same with us. There's something too that's called the abstinence violation effect, and that's something that I hadn't mentioned in the article, but with the abstinence violation effect, that's oftentimes used with people who do have some type of uh, addiction, or they have let's say they're trying to quit smoking or something of that nature. Then the abstinence violation effect is something where if they smoke a cigarette, so they've been trying to quit, and they have been quit for a couple of weeks, let's say, and then something happens stressful at work or something, and they have a cigarette. They end up, ruining that 2 weeks of sobriety, and they have a cigarette. Then a lot of people will say, okay, I might as well go back to smoking because I just ruined that 2 weeks.
Right.
The abstinence violation effect, though, says that what you do is you just get back to quitting. You don't say, okay, well, that's 2 weeks gone. You say, no, I learned something from this. I learned that this type of circumstance or situation can cause me to pick up a cigarette again. So now I've got to be extra prepared in this type of situation, but still go right back to quitting, because that is my ultimate goal. Not that I'm gonna say, okay, well, I failed at that. Because really that's with something like smoking or alcohol use or things like that. That's a pretty common thing to maybe have a couple of slips, we call it, before a person gets to full sobriety. And so the abstinence violation effect is just helps them to recognize that slips and relapses may be a part of the journey, but you just get back to quitting, because ultimately that's going to be the way that you continue and that you recognize full sobriety.
Wow, I love that. I'm really glad that you brought that up. And no, I was not familiar with that term, but I love that term. And the image that comes to mind as you're sharing that is of a mountain climber. If a mountain climber is climbing the mountain and they slip on some loose gravel and fall backward a few inches or something, they don't just go jump off the mountain. You know, they get right back on the path and they keep climbing. They don't just
Yes.
give up and throw themselves off the mountain. So I
Yeah.
think that's the illustration that came to my mind as you were sharing that. And so well, wow, you have just in a few minutes given us a lot to think about. So maybe we'll circle back around and talk about this some more as it progresses. But I think that seems like a lot to
Sure.
chew on right there, just for people who are trying to get started on something, get unstuck. It's like you don't have to
Yeah.
go to the goal immediately and overnight. You can take it in small steps. You can take it with help, with support of other people. You can not be afraid of the failure because it's not a failure. It's just you're learning something. You're learning what triggers you, like what you were just saying. It's so maybe you need to take some
Mhm.
deep breaths or do some deep breathing or phone a friend or pray or whatever it is you do when you realize you're in that
Mhm.
situation that there's a potential threat or a potential slip up coming up there. You can do that and learn about that. You called it the abstinence violation effect. So even if you do mess up,
Yes,
even if you do mess up, don't give up. Just get back, just get back on,
exactly.
just get back on the horse again. Don't just sell the farm.
That's right. That's right. Because you're losing more time if you're taking more steps backwards if you just say, "Oh, okay, well, yep, I went back to it, so I might as well stop. I'm gonna have to set a new date now and everything." No, that just consider it part of the process of getting to where you want to get.
I love that. I love that. Well, Ramona, thank you so much for jumping on with me and breaking these things down for us. And I really feel like this is going to help some people. I mean, I'm encouraged just listening to it. Just this conversation is a good conversation, and I mean, it really helps
Yeah.
because we all feel the things we've been talking about. So these are some great ideas and advice for helping people move forward and continue to move forward, even if it's a little bit at a time. It's still forward. So thank you
Yes.
again
Yeah.
for sharing
Thank you.
this insight with us. I really appreciate that, and I'll
Mm.
be looking forward to further upcoming health and awareness trainings.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you very much again for having me and for us discussing this. I am always, as I said, delighted to just talk about these kinds of topics because I think that the more healthy we are as a nation and as a people, the more we'll find that we're stronger in a lot of different areas. And so, a healthy life is generally a more happy life. And so, that is definitely always something that I like to contribute to or I like to be a part of in whatever way I can. Health promotion is one of the things that is really near and dear to me.
Yeah, well, you're very good at it and very encouraging. So I hope you get a lot of opportunities to bring this to a lot of people because I think you can help a lot of people with it. So thank
Thank
you for
you.
the ones that you've helped via our call today. And thank you for that. And then, like I said, looking forward to more good stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you. Same to you. And I'm glad that you have this platform.
Uh, Thank you, Ramona. Glad that you could join me on it. So thank you, and hope you have a great evening. And talk to you soon.
All right. You too, Jeff. Thanks.
Okay, you bet.